podcast number 1.
Yep.
Tinfoil Kingdom. Welcome to the Tinfoil Camper. I think it is important to just put this out there because we don't actually have tinfoil. Tinfoil hasn't been made since World War II.
Okay.
Which is interesting because we still have that thing where like, oh, get the tinfoil.
Mm-hmm. Reynolds wrap.
It's aluminum foil. We don't even have tinfoil anymore. But yeah, so I just so a little bit about the name here. Trying to come up with a name for this and had some ideas floating around, and I think there's a pretty good understanding of what people mean, like when they're like, put your tinfoil hat on.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this guy's a wacko. He's going to talk about some crazy stuff.
It's from the movie Signs.
Is it?
Right?
They do
You've
do
seen
it in
Signs,
Signs,
right?
Yeah,
they
they do it in
I have a
Signs.
picture of my siblings and I wearing all that when my parents came home. It was quite funny. Because it's ridiculous.
I forgot
It
about
just
that.
looks stupid. It's like, because the aliens can't read your mind.
They can't read your mind.
But then how much of
Is
that's
that
actually true?
Is that the origins of tinfoil
That's
hat?
where I know it from. I'm not sure
Dang.
if that's where the internet knows it from, but that's where I grew
We'll
up.
have to,
knowing
if you
that.
do know, drop it in the comments below.
Yeah.
But
Like, where'd you hear about it first? I don't know.
yeah, Signs, that's right.
Mhm.
That has to be, what, 20-something years
That's
old now?
Makes me feel old.
Dang.
'Cause, yeah.
Yeah, so let's see. So, yeah, tinfoil is like, everybody knows it's like conspiracy stuff,
Yeah.
right? It's wacky stuff, like this guy's going to go off on the rails about something, right? So it gives this idea of, we're going to talk about some strange things.
Mhm.
Like we're going to get into
stuff.
the non-traditional, the paranormal, the weird stuff. And I think, like Dr. Heiser said, if it's weird, it's important.
Mhm.
And so, and then we got the kingdom part where we wanted to tie in like the idea that we are part of the kingdom of heaven, right?
Yeah.
So we are sons, you and I, but believers, we are citizens of the kingdom of heaven. And so we're in this like eternal struggle between good and evil, right? So we have the kingdom of God and the kingdom of darkness, and we're caught somewhere in the middle of that. And so what is our place in the story that's unfolding in the cosmos? You know, so I think Tinfoil Kingdom kind of touches on a lot of different aspects of what we're trying to do here, and like the material that we want to talk about and trying to understand as we're walking through life. So that's where we get the name for this from. And just trying to, I think, just navigate a confusing world.
Yeah.
There's
a world that's been intentionally confused.
Yeah.
That's where it starts to get into the tinfoil stuff, right?
That's right. Yeah, intentionally confused. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Serpent, for that. So, yeah, and we're just, I think ultimately we're here because of the frustrations that we've had with Christian tradition and the removal of the supernatural. And I'm not a biblical historian or church historian, and I'm not exactly sure what happened along the way, but I know that from my experience, like there's been a removal or just there's been no teaching on the supernatural part of the Bible, for me at least.
Whether it's willfully ignorant or just naturally ignorant, I think there's a mix there, honestly, which is why I give a lot of grace to a lot of people as far as like I grew up with, that they just didn't know, and they don't know what they don't know because they've been indoctrinated to think a certain way, just like I was indoctrinated to think a certain way.
Yeah.
And so I'm not throwing stones at people that aren't aware of this stuff. And I'm not going to hold everything down and say this is exactly how it is, because that's what I came out of. Like, I came out of Baptist background, which every denomination, I think it's my wife that pointed this out at one point, every denomination seems to have its thing that it does really well, right? If you put it all together, it'd be great, but we don't put it all together, right? So Baptist, and I've grown up independent, fundamental, Bible-believing, King James only, skirt-wearing Baptist, right?
Got the red letter.
Right, everything, right? And so the thing about that is that Baptists hold stuff very tight. They almost freeze everything in time, right? And it has to stay this way. It's like this pillar of whatever. and it has to stay this way. And they hold stuff like that very, very tight, and it doesn't change. Which, if you're talking about the deity of Christ, right, the inerrancy of Scripture, things like that, absolutely hold that tight. I'm not giving that up. If you're talking about some fringe other stuff, like particular ways that maybe you do communion, like it has to be this certain thing. You can't drink alcohol. Like there be no wine in the communion or stuff like that, or wearing skirts, right, and stuff like that. Certain things, they hold that to be doctrine. But that's they hold those things to a fault, and that's their fault. That's where they waver so far to one side that it becomes pharisaical, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. That's where I was going with that. Is that I'd see people that are indoctrinated in that they don't know about this stuff, and again, willfully ignorant or just ignorant. They don't know, and so that's what I came out of. So that's why I get excited about all this stuff, because it's like you open up your eyes, which sounds new age-ish and whatever, open up your pineal gland. It's not about that. The Bible tells us a lot of weird, wacky stuff, and it's there for a reason.
Yeah,
right?
There's a lot of weird stuff in there, and I think, a lot of churches just will gloss over that weird stuff and not talk about it. Be like, what? We're moving on, or we're gonna skip that part, or that's not important.
Yeah.
And I think that it is, and I think what we're just trying to understand, and what we're hoping to do, is just have a conversation about how do we understand this stuff from the Bible, from a biblical worldview, and not a Christian tradition worldview. So, what is the Bible saying about this stuff, and not just drawing on tradition alone.
Right.
And I think you're right, man. I think the only, the real question, the only thing that matters is what Jesus did for us on the cross. Is that all? Is that it? I bring nothing to the table, right? So I have no part in my own salvation. Everything that I have is because of what Jesus did on the cross for me. And if you can say the same thing, that is how we are redeemed and brought back into the family of God. And if we agree on that, then okay, we're on the same team.
Exactly.
We are on, Yahweh's side.
Yes.
We are on his team. If you want to split hairs about we do this way, and our tradition is this, and we believe this thing, and we're more right than you are, great. Those are secondary issues to me, and I think you would agree. It's whose side are you on in this cosmic battle that we're in and we are a part of? Whose side are you on? And I think that's the only question that matters.
Yeah, that's the big one. I mean, we'll probably quote and reference Heiser a lot because he was very fundamental, at least for me, in changing my worldview, turning it upside down.
Yeah.
And he calls it believing loyalty, which I wish I had heard or understood that concept when I got saved, a long time ago. Because, and that'll get into my testimony later, but I mean, I think a lot of people have doubts because they don't understand. They prayed the magical prayer.
Yeah.
And they had a high because everybody around them was telling them the angels were rejoicing, and they're all rejoicing. Everybody's happy, and it's this big party. But what happened? I don't think a lot of people really grasp what happened, and they go on with life, and there's no loyalty because they don't know they don't know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I like that believing loyalty. You can have your secondary issues that we all squibble about. There's people at our church that I have issues that I squibble about, but our loyalty is in Christ.
Right.
So we're brothers.
Right. Yes and amen to that. And if you haven't heard of him yet, Dr. Michael Heiser, get his book, The Unseen Realm.
Yep.
It will.
I'm hiding it. I'm not.
Yeah.
Not on purpose.
We got
It's
a
right
copy
there.
here. 10th anniversary expanded edition just came out. Go check it out.
Yep.
We just need to preface this. There's nothing magical about this book.
No.
Right. This book is not canon. It is not doctrine.
No.
Dr. Heiser was just a human man, right?
And he would even say this is not even his information.
Right.
He pulled it from everybody else, which is crazy. This goes into the whole willfully ignorant thing.
Yeah.
Because this information has been there forever.
Yeah.
It has not. It's not magically just appeared or whatever.
Right.
It's been there forever, but people have, for whatever reason, ignored it or glossed over it or left it for the scholars to quibble about. And it's really sad because this which is all this does is give you a framework and a lens to look through at the Bible.
Right.
That's all it does. Yeah. It's the Bible that is amazing.
Yeah.
This just lets you see it differently, which is why I've read it a bunch of times, because it's like you're viewing the Bible the way that it's supposed to be viewed, right? Yeah. And it makes the Bible come alive.
Right.
Which for a lot of people, the Bible is just an old dusty book that just sits there and you read it on Sunday. Like,
yeah.
If you even do that. I don't know.
That's a great point, and that's something that I've learned to understand, is that reading the Bible now for me is like a action movie. It's like a superhero movie or something, like a lot of crazy action and fights and battles. It's not this Sunday school flannel graph cartoon characters. Yeah. Like, no, it's fascinating, and it's wild. It's a wild story, and I think that's something that Heiser helped me with, is like, this stuff's been here all along.
Yeah.
Like, I've never noticed it. I've never understood it, and or never got taught it. Like, some of it's my own ignorance, probably, but it never came up in growing up in church since I was in kindergarten. Like, it never came up.
Yeah.
And it's been there the whole time. And like, I read my Bible, I'm like, what? It's right here.
Yeah.
So
no, exactly. And I'd say too, like, it really, really points to the Bible being and I've said this before, you've heard me say this a million times probably, the Bible is a supernatural book.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's the Bible that is amazing. A child, like I was saved when I was between 4 and 6, something like that, and I understood the gospel enough to be saved. Mm-hmm. I had no idea about all the wacky, weird stuff that's in the Bible and what it actually means and all this stuff. You don't need all the extra stuff in order to understand the gospel. I like to call the gospel the low-hanging fruit that's in the Bible. Anybody can pick it up. The Holy Spirit can speak to you, convict you, and you can get saved. Mm-hmm. This stuff, this is meat. And this is, I think, where we're at. We've been saved for a while. We've been following God for a while. And at some point, you gotta get meat. If you sit there and drink the milk of the Word, it's great and sweet and it's nice, but there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
And you need to dig for it, and it's there. And that's what's exciting, is that this is like the tangible, like, there is something there. And when you start realizing that there is something there in the Bible, that's when it starts getting into this whole kingdom thing, this tinfoil stuff. Like, it's real in the Bible, it's real in our world, it's real for real.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is a little trippy. Like, yeah. And then, like, yeah, your kids start seeing critters, and you start meeting people who see things that shouldn't exist, and you're like, tradition doesn't give an answer for that. Or it just says it's spiritual.
Yeah.
And that's a blanket statement for anything and everything, which doesn't really help a whole lot, right?
Yeah, as we're learning, there's a hierarchy, right? Yeah. There's a structure. Right?
Absolutely,
man, I just we got real fired up and jumped right into that.
I know.
I should probably introduce ourselves. I'm Nick Hickman. This is my co-host,
Caleb Downing.
We are super fired up to be here. Just wanted to put it out there, like, Caleb and I, we go to different churches. We come from different traditional backgrounds. And, we just share a passion for wanting to get the good news out to people. Like, I think the most important thing that we're going to do, and I think you'd agree, is that everything we talk about points back to Jesus. Mm-hmm. Like, he is the reason for all of this. Like, the Bible is one unified story that points to Jesus. I love how the Bible Project talks about it. They're doing really awesome stuff over there, and it's just like, everything points back. Like, Jesus is the key. Like, everything revolves around him, and we want to point to that. And it's just important just to say out loud. The internet could be a very intriguing place, but we are not pastors. Nope. We are not biblical scholars. We are not theologians. We are just two guys hanging out in the tinfoil camper, talking about the weird stuff in life, the confusing things, and we just want to have a conversation. And at the end of the day, all glory to God. So You were talking about when you got saved. You were
Mhm.
5 or 6. What was that? How was that? What was going on at that point in your life? What was that experience?
So, like, I grew up in a very, well, I was trying to think of this earlier. We weren't Baptist originally, I don't think, whenever I got saved, or whenever I was born. I was born into a Christian family, a very traditional Christian family, right? And I do not remember which church they went to, but one of my early-ish memories of church, I don't remember which church it was, but I know they didn't use King James, and I know they had drums, and I think the drummer's name was Parnell, and he had long hair, and I always wanted to have long hair, I guess. That's from kind of what I remember, but also kind of what I was told that I remember. But we, shortly after that, and I had to have been like 3 or 4, it was early memories, we moved to a different church. It was Eastland Baptist Church in Tulsa, which is a great church. I think it's a great church.
Mm-hmm.
I would still go back to that church. It's fine. But that was an independent fundamental Baptist church. I think they were, I'm 99% sure, they're King James only kind of church. So that hardline kind of church. But they were very good. They loved people. They had a wanted program, which is where I ended up getting saved. And that was from, I don't even remember the verse, but I remember my sister was working on the pamphlet, the booklet thing, and it had a picture of people burning in hell, like a cartoon kind of thing, and had the verse there, and I was like, holy cow, I don't want to burn in hell, right? And so that was my salvation thing, was like the scared into heaven kind of deal, right? Because I had to have been less than 6, because we moved when I was like 6, so I was like 5 or 6, something like that. And I remember very vividly sitting down on the counter in the kitchen and then back in the living room with my mom and my dad. They explained everything. I prayed, and I genuinely 100% believe that's when I got saved. And I mean, coming from a Christian family, I take it for granted sometimes, and I look at it different ways. I did not come out of some crazy experience. I didn't get saved out of gangs and drugs and abuse, and I didn't have that. So it's like I got saved, and shortly after I got baptized, and life carried on, right? Because we were already in a Christian family. I was already indoctrinated into the Christian faith, as it were. So I didn't have, at that point in time, a real change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, going back to, nobody explained the believing loyalty thing. It was mostly all about just not going to hell, right? Because that's what I was scared about. You don't want to go to hell, so you pray this prayer because Jesus died for our sins, and this is how you do it, and now you don't go to hell. Yay. It's like, okay, that is fantastic. And I'm sure they explained it better. This is just me remembering back 30 years ago, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some things, but those are the things that I remember. That's why I got saved. I know that's why I got saved.
Yeah.
It's just really fire insurance to get out of hell.
Man. I can relate to that. I would say, man, the not going to hell part is okay news. That's not the good news. The good news is we have eternal life because of what Jesus did. It's it's okay news not to go to hell. We don't want to do that. But the good news, that's not the good news. The good news is what Jesus did for us, right? And you get restored back into the family of God. Exactly.
Which is a real thing. Which is always kind of taught as that's later, that's not now. But that couldn't be further from the truth. And that's where I'm at. Yeah. That's jumping way ahead now to where I'm at now. I understand that. But we have something to do, which is more than just read your Bible, pray, go to church, tithe, and whatever. Be nice to people.
Yeah. Be a good person.
Right. You should do that stuff anyway. What does it mean to be a son of God? What does it mean to be a member of the council here on earth? How does that work? I know I'm jumping way ahead of stuff, but that's where I'm at right now. But traditionally, you wouldn't even have that view because that stuff's just weird. I'm not really going to talk about that. I don't know, but that's where I started at.
Walk us through walk us through all right, you're 5 or 6 years old, we get saved. How do we get to where you are now, sitting in a tinfoil camper talking
about weird stuff.
About this, yeah.
Talking about a heretical Heiser guy. Yeah. Anyway, I guess that's a book. Anyway, or something like that. Anyway, so I would say 5 or 6. Got baptized shortly after. We moved to Southwest Oklahoma because my dad's job changed, and I'm kind of gonna go by church because the different churches did different. We learned different things, and key moments happened at different churches. So the first church that we went to when we moved down to Southwest Oklahoma was called Grace Baptist Church, and that's in Granite, Oklahoma. And if you've seen Nefarious,
I have, yeah.
I know that town because I know that prison because that's the only thing in that town.
That was the one?
From we passed that all the time. Like, we were there. I mean, we didn't go to the prison. One of the... he wasn't a prison guard. He was this, like, 7-foot tall giant of a man who worked at this prison.
Maybe.
His pinkies were bigger than my thumb. The guy was huge, the gentlest, kindest dude, and he taught them like basket weaving.
Dang.
Like, I can't make this stuff up. He was an awesome. I think it's Bill Ward. I was trying to remember his last name, but yeah, Bill. Not sure if he's still around anymore, but he was the nicest dude. Anyway, but that's the town. That's the town we're in. The church was. Our family had 6 kids and 2 parents. We were like a third of the church. It's a tiny church, so they were very glad when we showed up because there's actually people at this church.
Double the attendance.
Yeah, but it was a great little church. Grace Baptist Church. The pastor was great. Again, I wasn't getting pulled out of super bad circumstances, so it's not like I had a radical change there. But my growth in that church was just. I don't know if you call it regular growth, but being just indoctrinated into Christianity, or more or less indoctrinated into Baptist ideology, which take with a grain of salt, it's good or bad, whatever. I ultimately see all the Baptist stuff in my history as being good because ultimately it established that the Bible is accurate, is true, God is real, right? All those things. All the other specific to Baptist things, those get weeded out later, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've helped those things get weeded out. But anyway, back to the church. We ended up leaving that church. Well, let me back up a little bit. That's why I have notes, but I don't read notes.
Well, they look good. So.
Yeah, they look good. Anyway, it was at that church. I was probably around like 11 or 12. I started having doubts of my salvation, and this goes back to understanding exactly how salvation works, at least for me, and so I was at least for a week, if not 2 weeks, like every night I was like almost crying and just praying and crying out, like, I want to be saved, like, save me. I don't know if I did it right. Did I pray the right prayer? I don't know if this is working right. I don't want to go to hell. And the whole thing, the whole panic praying at night and kind of stuff. And finally I talked to my mom again, and I remember this again vividly, that she explained everything else again. And I think she even said it's not about the prayer, which I'm glad, like, I understood it then. Like, it's not about this magic. It's not Christian witchcraft, right? Where you say the magical thing and now it's right. Like, if it was, then we're going to get, the comma wrong and the sentence is messed up, right? So it's not about that. So I understood that. I got reassurance of salvation, which I definitely call it reassurance of salvation. I truly believe, because I truly believed it back when I was like 5 or 6. I think that's when I got saved. I believe that's when I got saved. And so I did not get rebaptized after I got reassurance of salvation. And for the longest time, I kind of wondered, like, is that one of those things where, God says, if you deny me in front of men, I'll deny you in front of, my Father. I was like, I kind of battled that for a little bit. Like, why didn't I get rebaptized? And it's like, well, that's not even about the whole thing. You got reassurance of salvation. You don't need to get baptized every time that you pray.
Yeah.
It's not about that. You made your loyalty claim a long time ago. And that's what that's all about. So that's where I got reassurance of salvation, and this continued to grow in the faith. All right. At that church, we moved from that church to a different church because the pastor of Grace Baptist, which I love the guy to death, and now looking back on it, I'm not sure I disagree with him, but he allowed somebody of a different denomination to come into the church and to become a member of the church without getting rebaptized and getting other stuff done. I don't remember which specific denomination they were. I don't know. So I don't know what all was different. If it was just as simple as a different version of the Bible.
Yeah.
Well, fiddlesticks. I use a different version of the Bible now. I don't know. So I don't know all the nitpicky stuff about that, but I know it was... I applaud my parents for, again, holding to what they believed was true, right? And at all costs, holding to what they believed was true. And so they're like, if you're going to do this, then you're changing the church. We're going to have to go somewhere else. So they held up for what is true. I applaud them, and I'm very grateful I have parents that had the gumption to stand up and say, this is how we see the Bible, and this is how we believe it, right? And so we moved to a different church, which that church ended up being the church that was the most dogmatic, like, hard line Baptist church, right? That's where it really started to get down to King James only, do what the pastor says. It ended up being it ended up being not very good. We ended up leaving that church like a decade later, but it happened slowly over time. While we were at that church, I think it was while we were there. It was either there at Grace Baptist. This is tying in something else, but this goes into my early development of Christianity. We were involved in IBLP, Institute in Basic Life Principles. I think that's what it's called, by Bill Gothard. His name's probably more noticeable to some people out there, and yeah, that's a cult. It didn't start out as a cult. I don't think so. It started out as this dude who had like a seminar. I can't remember. It was something seminar. I don't remember. But it was good. It taught biblical principles. It was nice. But then it grew from that into this mega ultra thing where he was not a pastor. He wasn't even married. He's giving marital advice, but he wasn't under any church, wasn't under the authority of any church, and people were following him over their pastors and over, like, they were following this guy. That's a cult. And they were fought to a fault. They were doing this. And we were all involved in this. We got involved in it very early. And the good thing about it is they had these things called wisdom books. It's just like this little magazine kind of thing. And we were homeschooled, and this would be part of your core curriculum. You would learn your math and science and English, all the other stuff. But this book basically would cycle through, not the Romans Road, Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6, 7, right? And so it was through this, even though it ended up being cultish, which we didn't know it at the time, it was through this that I got very indoctrinated and taught on, like, using Strong's Concordance, look up the Greek, study the Bible. Like, even though it ended up derailing later on, it was core and foundational in my upbringing. Like, I'm put to shame, like, how I raised my kids on, like, how my parents raised me, because we would get up, unless my memory serves me wrong, at like 5:36 in the morning before my dad would go to work. We read through the Bible as a family multiple times. We read through the Psalms and Proverbs all the time. It was like every day, every morning, get up. And so this stuff is pounded into my head, which I'm extremely grateful for, because it's almost like I had Bible college from 6 to 16 or whatever. Like, that Bible was our core thing, which was fantastic. And again, learning, not just reading the Bible, but looking at the Greek, looking at the words, and learning how to study the Bible, right? So that, I think that was a core thing, and ultimately that's kind of what got my parents, I think, out of the cult, because they ended up, it's like a subscription thing. Every year you'd have to pay in, and one year they were like, "Oh, we need to pay in," and then they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, why do we have to pay in? Like, why?" And they're like, "Oh, it scared them," and then they got out of it, and so we separated from that. But that in and of itself, that Bill Gothard thing, the benefit of that was, like I said again, we learned how to study the Bible, right? Even if the guy's weird, the truth of the Bible is still there, right? So we learned a lot of that. And that either happened when we were at Grace Baptist or when we moved. I can't remember. It was right in there somewhere, or when we moved to the other church. At the other church, since we had gotten out of this cult thing, I think my parents were a little bit more, I don't know. We started studying stuff, and how do I put this? Not so much just swallowing the pill of, this is the tradition, this is what it's always said, because they've been pulled out of a cult, so they understand that there's people that are going to lead you the wrong way, right? And I saw that, and I noticed that, and so I just continued to grow in my just personal spiritual development throughout this whole time at this new church. The whole time, it felt kind of off, again, the way that the pastor would, I mean, he would literally tell you, like, you're going to have blood, literal blood on your hands for like 1,000 years after you die for all the people that you should have witnessed to that didn't get saved, like stuff like that. And we always were like, that's kind of, I don't see the verse in the Bible. And he would pull stuff out. He would say things, and it was just like, we learned more about how not to be a spiritual leader in that church from him than like how to do that. And it was also like at this church that it was one of those churches where you have to be there all the time. Like the whole verse about when the doors are open, you're at church. Well, that's quite literal. Like if the function is not for you, you're serving for the function, like if it's and so we were there all the time, and it kind of built this weird thing with me, and I think with most of our family, to where, I mean, you get burned out.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like you start realizing, are you doing this because you love God? Are you doing this because the church mandated that you need to do this, and the pastor said you got to do this, or you're gonna have blood on your hands, right? And so It was a slow progression of just, it wasn't so bad, and then by the time it was done, like, by the time we got out of that church, like, he was yelling at 80-year-old piano players, ladies, for, like, not doing what he wanted them to do. Like, pastors don't do that, right? And so...
Did anybody, like, push back on this guy or confront him?
My dad.
Yeah?
Finally, again, kudos to my dad. My dad is a great role model for me, and again, I'm very blessed to have that. Because he was the financial officer, not to get into the church's all dirty laundry stuff, but he was the financial officer, and he finally called the pastor out and was like, you're spending money, you're doing stuff with this money, I don't know what you're doing with it, I'm the head financial officer, we need to have a meeting, and he basically said, the pastor called him like a Judas kind of thing, like in front of the church, and just reamed him out like you're causing dissension, and it's like, okay, we're gone. Like, sorry, this took 10 years to figure this out.
Holy
anyway,
smokes.
Yeah, so that was a very... very hardcore Baptist church. So that's where I come from. That's the bulk of my early to like my real formative years. They're like at least 10 to 21, right? That's where we were going to church. And so that's my background, and that's why whenever I see people holding on to tradition or quote unquote church fathers or whatever, I mean who those people are, if you're talking about, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, or are you talking about, philosopher so-and-so and whatever, there's a big difference, right? Yeah. And so people have good ideas, people have good things, but if people are holding on to stuff other than the Bible as like, this is what is, like, it goes back to the whole cult thing, that whole Bill Gothard thing, they hold on to what he had to say, that guy. Or in this other church, hold on to what the pastor says because I don't want blood on my hands. Like, yeah, that's where that's my... antagonism to that stuff. That's where that stems from. But I didn't really know it at the time. But it was also while we went to that church, I went back, because I graduated high school, I went to the Alert Academy. And this is where my real personal spiritual development, my personal walk with God really started. And the Alert Academy, I'll give that a plug. That's Air Land Emergency Resource Team. It's an academy down in Texas. It stemmed from the Bill Gothard thing. They're like a sister, partner, cousin of that group because they use the land owned by IBLP. They're not really the same thing. They kind of were at the beginning. It's fuzzy. It's kind of like the Marines are part of the Navy, but they're not. And they, that whole kind of thing. Whatever. So it's kind of like that. So yes, they use some of the same things, but they didn't worship Bill Gothard. So it was better. But it was at that place, which is it's a very militaristic style academy where you have rank structure, you have boot camp, second phase, third phase. My brother went through it, got his EMT paramedic license. I went through boot camp, and it was amazing. I went back into second phase, which is emergency response training, and then I went back again to do cadre for basic training. And when you do cadre, you have to, there's a workup for that. Okay. And you it's very physical, very mental. In all honesty, in my experience, it was much more mental and physical and spiritually harder than like Marine boot camp. Because I'm Marine too, right? Yes, it kicked that out of the water. Because they're not a government organization. They can keep you up all night. Oof. They can smoke the crap out of you. They can do a bunch of stuff to you that you can't do in the military because it's not government, right? But it was amazing. It was fantastic. And the whole point of this thing, it's building godly men. It's not, let's strip you down and build you up to be a great guy. It's like, no, we want to build godly men with godly character. It's an extremely unique organization. So anyway, it was at this place. I went back and did the cadre training. And that was one of the first times where I asked God to show me a sign, show me something, to show me that I'm where I need to be spiritually, I'm where I need to be right now physically, I need to be doing cadre, I need to be doing this thing, because I was confused, like, did I need to go to college, did I need to go somewhere else, am I wasting my time in this academy, what do I need to do? And during cadre training, at the end, you have this big hike that's harder than anything else in boot camp, anything else anywhere else, because the cadre need to know that you did the hardest thing, you're going to go back and redo basic training with all these cadets, and it's not going to be harder than what you did in cadre training. So we're doing this final hike, which is basically this run through the woods with packs and stuff, and I was asking God this whole thing, just praying, like, show me that this is where I need to be, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And all of a sudden it was like the hike was over, and I had tons of energy, and I had complete peace about the whole thing. And it wasn't like a high from completing, a hike, because you get a high from completing something. Sure, you get, endorphins and all that stuff. But it was different. I could feel that it was different. It was a reassurance that, like, yes, you're supposed to be here. You're going to lead these guys through basic training. This is where you're supposed to be right now. Do your best right now. And I was like, wow. Like, that's really where my faith internalized, and it became my faith and my walk with God. And so I came out of that, went back to Mangum, that church that I was talking about, and you could definitely see the issues with the pastor and stuff, and it got it was weird, but we've been there so long, we didn't really separate from there for a while. But it was also at that church, blessing of that church, that's where I met my wife. And we got married relatively shortly after I talked to her, that's another God thing. And then we moved, and this is really where it started to, like, my life started to spiritually change, because we moved away from family, which I encourage anybody. It's great if you get married. If I wouldn't do it just for the sake of doing it, but moving away and becoming your own entity, becoming your own thing, there's verses about that. And that is very important, very important. So it's a blessing and a curse, because it's nice to have parents close. They can watch your kids and do stuff like that, right? But also it can get kind of messy. But we were away from everybody, which meant we have to find our own church. We have to go do our own thing. And we did that. We went to a great church in Florida, which is, again, we started out very fundamental Baptist church, King James only kind of stuff, from what I remember. And we served in different, areas and stuff, and we grew spiritually together. But then we moved shortly after that to Alabama, and that's where we were introduced to a church called Open Door Baptist Church, and I would give them a shout out. That's a good church. And they were very Jewish-centric, like Jewish perspective, right? There's certain people that they would follow, and they'd teach from their stuff, like a Jewish rabbi guy that had, like, I don't remember. I forget his name, but it doesn't really matter. But it was good stuff, because it was there that I learned, that I started to see there's a lot more to the Bible, that you're not going to get just reading the Greek and Hebrew. You need the perspective. Like, my favorite thing to point out is Jesus waiting 3 days to heal Lazarus. It's not just about his time is on time, every time is perfect. Like, that makes for a great song. It's great, but that doesn't really answer it. It's like, the whole point is that they taught traditionally, which you won't find in the Bible, because they didn't need to have it written out in the Bible, because it was their tradition, that the Jews taught that only God himself could raise somebody after 3 days. Mm-hmm. Prior to 3 days, their spirit hung around. You could potentially resuscitate the body, but after 3 days, only God could do that. So it would make sense that God waits 3 days and then raises Lazarus, and everybody's like, oh, the priest said this guy has to be God now. And they're like, no, he did that through the power of Beelzebub. Like, and it's like, whoa. So it's like, that's where we really started to see, wow, like, the Bible is super, like, onion peel layer like, it gets nutty and crazy, and, like, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Like, it makes more sense that Jesus goes places he goes and says things he does, and all these things are so much more meaning, like 4 or 5 layers deep, to where you can get kind of deep studying Greek and Hebrew, that's fine, but then context is huge. And so it was there, given all this other background that I've spent so much time talking about, of realizing the Bible's true, and if the Bible says it, it's real. And that's whenever I was like, okay, well, let's just start looking at stuff. And then I started looking at, I think initially it was Nephilim. Mm-hmm. Started looking at Nephilim, which I never was really taught anything bad or good about them. We just skimmed over it. Like, doesn't matter, don't worry about it. There's big tall people that they killed, that David killed, and don't worry about that. Well, there's a whole lot else to that, right? And so I started looking at
weird freaks, like, just happen to be tall.
Exactly.
Or I like this one. Everybody else was shorter.
Yeah, and these guys were just a little
taller. I was like, all right.
Anyway, yeah. And so I started going down that rabbit hole, and that got me into the flat earth thing, right? Awesome. Because the Bible says the earth is flat, and I will fight you on that, because the Bible does say that the earth is flat. It's pressed down, it's flat, it's on pillars, it doesn't move. God stopped the sun for Joshua twice. He didn't stop the cosmos. He didn't stop anything else. He stopped the sun. And so for in this scientific world, flying through space, and somebody stops the sun, the star, the sun, and everything else goes shooting by, then we just all died twice, because he did it twice. And I'm like, okay,
shout
the Bible
says, flat earthers out there.
I know, I understand you guys, because I've been there, and I know, and I remember vividly looking at this, and there's specific people that taught heavily on this stuff and got very dogmatic about it. to the point to their fault, to the point to where, like, if you don't believe this, then you don't believe the Bible, so you're not even a Christian because you don't believe the Bible. So what else do you not believe, right? And so I remember seeing this stuff, walking outside, looking up at the blue sky, and be like, wow, like, that's the firmament, and having, like, tears in my eyes, like, we are that close to God. Like, all you gotta do is peel away this layer, and God's right there. Some stuff, I mean, I've come to realize other things later, and that was from Heiser, because Heiser, I guess, it might have been through Logos, he developed one of the graphics, not for this guy, but he developed a graphic of the ancient cosmology view of the Earth on pillars with the hard dome thing on top. And this guy that was doing all this flat Earth stuff referenced that, and that's where I heard about Michael Heiser. And I was like, oh, cool, another flat Earther guy. I can learn about more stuff. Started listening to his stuff. I don't think I initially read the book. I think I started watching some of his videos. And that he was the only guy, the only biblical scholar, the Christian with, like, a pedigree and a background to know stuff, that gave a reasonable answer. And this probably is, like, spoiler alert for any other episode on Flat Earth.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. It's context. It's context. The people who wrote the Bible did not have a scientific worldview. They didn't look at it that way. They wrote the Bible how they saw things. They wrote what they saw. And if they saw the sun stand still, they saw the sun stand still. They don't know about everything else that's out there because they don't care about science. It's not about science. It was never about science. There might be some scientifically accurate things in the Bible. I know there are. But the Bible is not a science book written to be a science book. Right? And so when you realize that, then you can understand, like, that is actually a proof of the Bible being written when it said it was written. Which is more, in a way, it's more powerful because it brings more validity to the Bible. Because if the Bible was written in a 21st century mindset, thousands of years ago, then this is no different than the Book of Mormon, which pulls stuff out and tries to mix and mingle times and ideologies that just don't mix, and you can point out faults in different books because they didn't believe this back then, or this didn't actually you know what I'm saying? And so it became a proof text, and I was like, oh. And it shattered my paradigm because it had already been broken by worldview or by Flat Earth, and I was pliable. The way that I take on new ideas, and it might be different than other people, is I'll run it through the Bible. If the Bible doesn't initially knock it out, then I'll accept it, and then I will try to defend it from the inside. When you can find all the little holes and all the little things, all the little arguments that are going to tear down your worldview or that worldview that you took on. And if it falls apart, then it falls apart. But you did it from the inside, trying to defend it, instead of from the outside, trying to attack it. You know, there's two different ways, and a lot of people do one way or the other. And so that was for me with the whole Flat Earth thing. That got me into Heiser stuff, which got me into, like, the supernatural worldview. And the whole Deuteronomy 32 worldview. And the gods being real, which again was like, no, there is no other God but Yahweh. Then why is that one of the, like, priority commandments? Don't have any other gods before me.
Number one.
Yeah.
Actually.
Right. Priority. It's right there. But, you know, and God is greater than all the other gods that don't exist. I love how
God defeated the gods of Egypt.
Right.
He says that.
Right.
Like,
Tonight I'm going to execute judgment on the gods that don't exist. It didn't make any sense. But now it's like, oh, this does make a lot of sense. Yeah. So Heiser was really, I went through all this time of all this hardline Baptist ideologies, kind of breaking that down, seeing where it falls apart, and then coming into this thing to where I start to realize that there's way more to the Bible than just a cursory reading, and even just understanding a few words in Greek and Hebrew. It's more than that. It's very deep, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And he was really like my catalyst. There's another word I was trying to look for, but the first step into realizing this stuff that is real. Like, there's more out there. And then it was when we came here to this church up here in Anchorage. It was ABT, Anchorage Baptist Temple, when we first started going there. There was Scott Levesque, I think is how you say his last name. Probably got it wrong. But he was like our Sunday school teacher. They call him different things, but he was a pastor there. And he saw this stuff and understood this and actually taught on it, which was validating to some degree, because there's so many people that will not even acknowledge this stuff. Even my pastor back in Alabama, I tried to show him Heiser stuff because I was like, you're going to love this. You love Jewish culture, history, that whole thing? He's like, no.
Nah.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, what in the world? Like, really? And so, I don't know. So, yeah, this is my frustration right now, is where it can be very hard. This is my area of where I need to work on, is I can be very judgy, because I can be like, you've been a Christian for 30 years?
Yeah.
Like, look at this stuff. This is so cool. Let me show you. This is so awesome. It's like, no, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
I'm like all the steam goes out of my sails. I'm like, really? Like, where are you at then? And it's easy for me to try to judge people, but that's not what we're supposed to do. And we are supposed to judge one another in a certain way and help each other to grow, yes, but I'm not going to... I can easily try to think myself better because I've come to the realization, and that's where I have to keep me in check on that, because that's where I have to be careful, because it's not me who has figured all this stuff out. God leads all of us in our own paths, and as long as we, again, hold to those core truths of like who God is and our relationship with God, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Even my parents, if they ever watch this, sorry, but even my parents, they're not even into all this. And I've tried to explain it, and I'm sure, I know I'm the weird conspiracy crazy person in our family.
Hat guy.
Exactly. That's me and our family. So anything that I say is probably tainted with, well, you believe the earth is flat too. So, you know. Yeah. So anyway. But that's kind of where I'm at now. I don't know if that answered everything as far as we get there, but that's where I'm at now as far as seeing this world. It's very different and it's crazy, and that's where I was going with this too. This is the catalyst. As far as opening my eyes to everything being different, and then I was introduced to Blurry Creatures, Naked Bible Podcast. Shout out Blurry. We are not trying to rip them off at all. We are just extremely inspired. What is it? What's the greatest form of flattery? Is imitation. Imitation. There you go. So we just appreciate you guys. But that is for real. And even Tim Alberino, his book goes 10 times crazier than this. His ideas, and that, again, if you just read that and see that whole ideology and cosmology, that whole thing, without first realizing that there's something else going on, you're probably just going to kick it out and be like, it's stupid. Yeah. No, Bible doesn't say that. This doesn't make any sense. No. Yeah. But then when you realize that there is more going on, and then you read that, and whether all of it's true, some of it's true, I believe majority of it. I don't know if I believe everything, because I don't remember everything that's in it, but I understand that there is... We call it and Heiser calls it a supernatural worldview. Yeah. Tim doesn't like the word supernatural because he sees it as physical. Right. They just have different technology, basically. They have different abilities, which we would call supernatural. Like, I would be burned at the stake for having a phone, 200 years ago. Right. You'd be some kind of wizard. Exactly. But that's just technology. How much of that for beings that could have potentially been around millions of years, which, again, that's a whole evolution podcast, but if they've been around forever, they're going to know a lot of stuff. Way longer than us. Right. And so, it's got me into this place to where I can see now that there is much more going on. This whole thing about us being sons of God and having that ability to boldly go before the throne of God, in the counsel of God, and do what? Our main mission that God gave us is to go into the world, preach the gospel, bring back the nations. That's our job. There's other things about ministering and stuff like that, which is very good. And I think keeping the main thing is what I need to do. Like, it's titillating to think about going out and casting demons out and doing all this other stuff, but that's not the main thing. We have the power to do some of those things. I think in the proper application of that, if it's going out to do that just for the sake of, oh, look, I can do this stuff, I can flex my spiritual muscles, I think you're going to be like is it Sons of Sceva? Is that the 7 guys that win it? Yeah. It's like, no, you're going to get your butt kicked. Like, you're not doing it right. You're doing it for yourself. Exactly, right? Stuff like that. And so keeping the main thing, which is, again, part of the whole reason of this channel, the whole reason of this podcast, whatever you want to call it, is to bring light to the mission of God. Bring back the nations, which the Bible doesn't use words, just whatever. It's specific on nations, and that goes back to the whole Deuteronomy 32 thing. Right. Which you don't understand if you don't get context of what they're actually saying. So that's where I've come full circle. I've come from the super hardcore background of Baptist ideology, and now I'm somewhere in between. I don't even know what we want to call it. I just call it Christian, right? Which is honestly why I'm very glad our church even changed its name from Anchorage Baptist Temple to Mountain City Church. And I know some people will hate this, but Baptists can kind of have a bad name as far as being like judgmental and pharisaical, like holding to specific things just because it's tradition. Like, I say to the wind with that, if it's just tradition for the sake of being tradition, Well, then do that on your own if you want to, but don't hold somebody else to it if the
Yeah.
Bible doesn't explicitly say this is how this is supposed to be done. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's where I'm caught at right now. And I'm excited because, again, seeing the world as more real than it seems to have ever been. I like to say that, we have lived in our own little made-up fairy tale, right? Our own little bubble, our safe little bubble. That's the fairy tale. The real story is this other stuff of these war between the gods, entities and spirits and powers, what's the Bible say? Wrestle not against flesh and blood, but principalities, powers, and rulers.
Yep.
Yeah, those are what's real.
The real.
Yeah.
The real.
That's what's real. And that's what I want people, that's what I would hope people would see and just catch a fire about that stuff is real.
Yeah.
And I've said that 100,000 times, so
yeah.
I think that's where I'm at. That's my long word vomit testimony.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for sharing that with us. You can open worms everywhere. You just gave us like 10 episodes that we could do.
Yeah.
Flat Earth, like man,
evolution.
That's evolution, yeah. But it's really awesome to hear like your story, to hear about the journey that's God is taking you on. Like that's a lifelong process for us, right?
Yes.
And just to hear how he's been interacting with you and like bringing you along, and like I think like you said, making your faith your own.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you come to that point where like I believe this, like, and I am choosing to be on like God's side. I am choosing to be here, to be loyal to Him, and like that once you make that real for yourself, like it changes. Everything. That's exactly what it sounds like. So yeah, man, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. Yeah, it's been a wild ride so far.
It has been, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it. That's why I've said, excuse me, I said before that I wasn't saved out of crazy circumstances and abuse and stuff, and I can look back on that now and be very grateful because I've been spared from that. But then I still have to deal with the whole ideology things in my head. The whole better than thou kind of thing. Like that's my battle.
Yeah.
Because it's not as black and white as like, okay, I was killing people and now I'm loyal to Christ. Like it wasn't like that. But it's a battle in my mind, which I don't know. It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you touched on something that is important for just us to talk about and just to get out there for everybody else. And like the purpose of our podcast and our channel here is like to push back on darkness, like to push back against the kingdom of darkness. And like it says in Matthew, I think in Matthew 16, like when Jesus is talking about how he's going to build his church on the rock and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. Like man, gates are defensive positions, and so we need to be actively advancing the kingdom of God. And I think we're just trying to do a little part of that here with this channel to not glorify the dark in any capacity, but to push it back by exposing the light and bringing the light of Jesus and God into our daily lives and into our practices. Like this is what it's about, and by bringing that light into the main focus, it'll push back the darkness. And like I just think it's awesome that we're here today shooting on a Halloween.
Yeah.
So October 31st, Halloween first episode. We are here just doing we're having these conversations, praying about this stuff because it's real.
It is real.
It's real. It's here. It's happening. And we just want to bring awareness to the fact that these entities are out there. This presence is out there. Like it's real. People get tangled up in it so quickly and have no idea like what happened or where they're at. And like, man, I think that's at the heart of what we're trying to do here, just to bring awareness to the fact that the supernatural reality is ever present in our lives, and we are caught in this cosmic warfare. The supernatural, like what we do here in the physical realm is a mirror of what's happening in the unseen realm. And like they're interacting. We may not be able to see it.
Yeah.
Like there's things happening around us we're unaware of, but they're there, and we're just trying to understand it. Like, how do we understand this as believers, right?
Like, what do you do with it?
And like, what do you do with it? And
because one thing to understand it, and that's where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at right now. It's like I understand enough of it to know that it's there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now what? What do we do with it?
What
Because
do
that's
we
the
do?
question I get posed all the time. So what? Okay,
Yeah.
this stuff's interesting.
Why does this matter?
Yeah. How does this affect me? What do I do?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that's where I'm after. That's what I want to do. Part of even that, even thinking about Halloween, and I haven't even run this past you, but even thinking about Halloween, I truly believe, and this gets into stuff, but I really truly believe that with that the power given to the other gods at Babel, right, was taken back by Christ. Because that's what he says whenever he goes to heaven. All power and authority is given to him.
Right.
So he has stripped them of their power and authority. They still have it now, though. They still have something now.
Yeah.
But where's it from? I believe that is from humans,
From us.
people, unknowingly giving that power and authority back because we don't know. And even things like Halloween. Understanding and saying, okay, the devil doesn't own this day. I refuse to give him this day.
Right.
He doesn't own this. This world belongs to God. God will reclaim this world. That's part of as in heaven, so on earth. Like his will be done on heaven, so, as it is on earth, or on earth as it is in heaven.
Yeah.
Which is the same difference, but is backwards, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's one thing we can do: reclaiming, calling it out, and saying like, yeah, people celebrate evil on this day, but it doesn't belong to Satan.
No.
It doesn't have to. It only does because people do that.
Yeah.
But if you call it out and you say, no, I refuse to, I'm not going to do this thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a participant of that.
Mm-hmm.
It strips them of their authority because that's the only way that they can have authority now is people giving that back. Because God didn't give them their authority back.
Yeah.
People gave it back.
Yeah, we give them that authority and authorization.
Yes.
To be here, to be present. Like, we're the ones that opened that door up. And, like, there's so many ways that you can even unintentionally open those doors, or you might have no idea. But just because you're ignorant to the fact that it's possible doesn't mean that it won't happen.
No, just like any law, ignorance to the law is no excuse. Ignorance to the spiritual world is no excuse. You're not safe. You're not safe thinking that, I'm just going to read my Bible, pray, go to church, and it'll be fine. No, it can still touch you, and it will still affect you. And if it's not affecting you, probably means you're not doing something. And that's the scary thing. You're not supposed to live there should not be any such thing as a safe Christian life.
Yeah.
Really shouldn't be, because it's not safe. You are in a battle, whether you know it or not, whether you intend to or not. Just how are you going to fight? That's what we're trying to figure out.
Man,
anyway.
I think that's it right there. We are in a battle, whether you know it or not, and I think that is probably a good place to end this one. And this has been, it's been really good to hear your story, and just as we're getting started, just to bring a little understanding of where we're coming from, who we are, our struggles with understanding our faith and Christianity, and pushing or understanding traditions versus biblical truths, balancing between the two of those. And I'm looking forward to the next episode. I think I'll probably talk a little bit about
we need to know your story.
Where I'm coming from, and
I talked this whole time.
Give your side. I think we'll come back next time. We'll talk a little bit about my journey that God has brought me on. But we're looking forward to the next one. So we'll see you next time in the Tinfoil Camper.
See you later.